This is the Horse Radio Network.
This is episode 1051 of Horse Tip Daily. A different horse tip, a different equine topic, a different equestrian expert every day. Horse Tip Daily brings the world of equine knowledge to you, one day at a time. Greetings, horse people. Coach Jen here, and thanks for tuning in to Horse Tip Daily. Today's tip, Justin from Total Saddle Fit answers a listener question about how to recognize when a saddle needs to have its flocking changed. And we'll get right to our tip after this important message from Kentucky Performance Products.
He was her first love, the one that started it all. He taught her how to master the posting trot and navigate her first hunter course. They spent hours together exploring the trails and hanging out in the barn. His name was doodled on every page in her school notebook. His coat gleamed in the sun as he met her at the gate each day, snuffling for a treat. From the first time she saw him poking his head out of the stall to the last time she patted him goodbye, he was, and always will be, her everything. This love story is brought to you by Nalox Advanced, providing complete support for a healthy digestive tract, which reduces the risk of colic and digestive upset. The horse that matters to you matters to Kentucky Performance Products. Call 859-873-2974 or visit kppusa.com to order today.
Justin from Total Saddle Fit is here to answer the questions of our listeners regarding saddles, saddle fits, girths, girth fits, and who has the best pizza in Chicago. Welcome back to the show, Justin.
Well, thank you for having me, and I'm sorry that I'm going to have to disappoint you without having that pizza answer ready.
It's the time of day that I'm getting the 3 o'clock hungries, and for some reason, the image of pizza just popped into my head, and I had to get that out of there. With the listeners of the Dressage Radio Show have been enthusiastically emailing questions to Reese at horseradionetwork.com and Philip at horseradionetwork.com. So Justin is here to answer some. And today he's going to answer a question from Diane in Ontario. She writes, how will I know if my saddle needs reflocking? I know some folks just reflock their saddles every 3 years or so. I have a sort of hybrid saddle that is between all-purpose and dressage, and I've had it for 5 years. I ride 5 days a week and did use it on 2 horses until I sold 1 horse about a year ago. My horse seems to be going forward and in a balanced frame. He stands quiet and still while I saddle him, and he's not telling me that the fit is not ideal. I do not tie my horses for saddling, so he could leave the scene of the crime if he wanted to. So should I get it reflocked anyway?
All right. Well, there's a couple sort of ways we can look at reflocking and the need to do that. One is from the more fine-tuned fitting perspective, which is the saddle sitting balanced and level, longitudinally from front to back? Is it balanced left to right? Make sure, is the saddle shifting off to one side? Because most horses have some degree of asymmetry, and over a long time period, like what Diane mentioned, 3 years, many saddles will start to shift one way or the other. So if we're talking about that kind of fitting, and if your saddles do move around like that, they do have some kind of sort of shift or imbalance that happens over time, definitely as soon as you notice any of these imbalances, it's very important to get it checked and get it reflocked. For a lot of horses, that tends to be closer to the 1 year mark, but it varies wildly from horse to horse and saddle to saddle as well. Now, if we're speaking a little bit more generally, and we're not talking about these fine-tuned details, we're just talking more about maintaining the saddle, maintaining the panels, making sure they're generally in good condition. What I would look for there is when you turn the saddle over, and you should do this sort of on a somewhat regular basis, regardless. Just kind of check out your tack. Look at the equipment, look at the saddle, look at the panels. Are they soft? How do they feel? Is there anything weird going on? Because things can break down over time, or screws can come loose. I mean, the last thing you want is a screw coming loose out of a saddle and hurting your horse. So it's worthwhile to check it regardless. But as we're talking about checking the panels specifically, and you don't notice anything weird as far as balance goes, the two things you want to look for is the density of the panels. So it could go one of two ways with that. We ideally want panels that are nice and soft, just kind of like a pillow you'd want to sleep on, something like that. But something needs reflocking when if that soft wool has compressed so much, the panels are almost like empty feeling, where you can push your finger in there and feel the tree underneath it. That would be a suggestion that it might be time to get it reflocked. On the other side of it, for a slightly more densely flocked saddle, if the wool has compressed so much that it's just kind of gotten rock hard, and this happens for older saddles and saddles that go much longer terms without any work to them, but if it's gotten really hard, that's another sign to get it reflocked and get some fresh wool in there. It's fluffier, it'll be softer to mold around the horse's back better, and just be more comfortable overall. Those are the two main things. And a little, to add on to these sort of older, more densely flocked saddles, every once in a while you'll find that wool, which is what many, many saddles out there are flocked with, the wool can kind of bunch up and get a little bit lumpy sometimes. And as you run your hand with some pressure along the length of the panels, if you notice any spots where it kind of feels like there's a knot there, again, another sign that you probably want to get the flocking work done, because those lumps are only going to add just a little bit of undue pressure to your horse's back.
And a great way to witness and feel for yourself all of those attributes to saddles that need to be reflocking is go to your local swap meet or yard sale or yard tack sale and pick up all those 500-year-old saddles that people are trying to sell for $25. Those saddles have those attributes.
You're absolutely right. That's such a great point. I never thought of it that way, and you're totally on it with that. Those old saddles are perfect examples of how not to have a saddle flocked.
So pick those up and play with them, and then go home and play with yours and see if they're similar. And if they are, you need to call somebody.
That's right.
There we go. Now, for someone who has a saddle that is not flocked, one of the foam panel saddles, does foam get hard, or does it just break down and get flat?
Foam, it will break down, but we're talking over very, very long periods. Generally, for the life of the saddle, there's not a heck of a lot you can really do with the foam. I know people can put some fitters will put wedges in between the saddle and the foam panels to account for different balance issues and stuff. Mm-hmm. But as far as it breaking down or softening up over time, it doesn't have that element, because it is one rigid piece of material, mm-hmm. as opposed to wool, which is kind of a more pliable, natural fiber. Yeah. So the sort of general the general thought is that the wool requires some maintenance, but is natural, softer, more comfortable for a horse, molds their back much better, while foam is lower maintenance, and you pretty much, for the most part, you don't have to touch it for a really, really long time, but at the same time, it doesn't really change with your horse.
It is what it is, what it is. Like a cheap pair of shoes. It is what it is, what it is. If they don't fit when you buy them, they'll never fit.
That's right.
There we go. Well, thank you very much for answering Diane's question. Diane, I hope that helped you out, and we will be seeing you again soon, Justin, I'm sure. Well, that about does it. You can find links to today's guests, topics, or products at horsetipdaily.com. This podcast has been made possible through the generous support of Kentucky Performance Products and listeners like you. The Horse Radio Network and the Horse Radio Network hosts are not responsible for statements of guests or their opinions. Use your own judgment when listening to the tips provided by the experts on Horse Tip Daily.